must be Tutorial Tuesday. So this is a goodie. This one is a goodie. This one's definitely worth pressing the save button because I guarantee you'll be making these over and over again. So these are very simple, super quick gifts for Christmas, and they are the humble key fob. So for this one, I have just put a little round ring on. Now, if you are in an emergency hurry for a gift and you haven't got time to source any hardware, these are great. You can pick these up just about anywhere. Or I found I have a lot of keys in my house and a lot of key rings and key fobs, and these are just kind of hanging around, so you could take one off another one and use it. If you wanted to be super fancy, then you can buy things like these, which are these twizzle clasps, and then that makes a super fancy key fob, and you can buy anything in between. So yeah, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to show you a few different ways, but one of the things that I am going to show you is this little detail here. Now, I probably get asked this question the most. And so on the flat labels, like my sparkle labels that I sell on my shop, did you know? I'm going to show you how to use a satin stitch. Now on this one, I'm going to show you how to use a larger zigzag, and then I'm going to show you how to use a smaller zigzag, because basically the smaller you go, the more it looks like, you know, the outside you get on like a swimming badge or a brownie badge, and that kind of really neat close together zigzag. And then, but on this one, I've done a slightly wider one, and that gives you a really nice effect too. So first things first, you can use scraps of fabric for this. You can use it to match the person that you're giving it to. You can use up just scraps of fabric. I've got this gorgeous licorice all sorts, I call this fabric. It's a lovely needle cord. It is from Andrea up Beyond the Pink Door. I got it to make a pair of Lala trousers, and I've got a few bits of it left over. I've got a few things planned, but I thought, why not keep my keys all fancy? Now, the measurements for this is you need 12 inches by 4 inches, 12 inches by 4 inches. But of course, you can make it your own. It is just a key fob, but this is the measurement that I use. So what you want to do now is you want to get your ironing mat, and you're going to fold it in half and press it, and then you're going to fold the two long ends into the middle and give it a press. And please note my fancy new iron. Isn't it fancy? Isn't it fancy? I treated myself. It was a treat that I gave myself when I fell down the stairs. It's a long story. So I'm just going to fold it in half. So this is wrong sides together. Fold it in half, wrong sides together. Tell if I switched it on. And can you see my fancy iron has got a spotlight? Oh, the joys, the joys. So I'm just going to give that a press, and then I'm going to unfold it, and I've got a pressing line now, and then I can just fold that into the middle, and then I can fold the other side into the middle and give that a really good press. Now, if you want to make this a lot easier for yourself, don't use a needle cord, don't use a fabric that's super bouncy. Use a nice crisp cotton, poplin or lawn or anything really that will give you a nice press. But it is a nice way of using up those scrappy bits. My iron's now gone a little bit too warm, so let's turn that down a little bit. So there you have it. So basically I folded it in half, and then I folded the two long ends into each other, and then we fold it in half like so. So we've got something that looks like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to unfold it, and then at one of the ends, this is where we're going to pop our label. I'm going to use one of these labels. Now these are limited edition labels. You can only get these if they're gifted to you by me, and I do pop them in some of my parcels. I'm going to pop, it says Social Sparkle. I'm going to pop that on there, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a dab of this basting glue. This basting glue is fabulous for just popping labels in place. So I'm just going to pop a little bit on. Then I'm going to pop it down, and I've just popped it about 2 inches from the end. Can you see? That is nicely in place, and I'm going to leave that to dry for about 5 minutes. Okay, so now we're ready to do the satin stitch. So what I need to do, what I need to show you so that you can understand where we're sewing on our label. So when you have your sewing machine, when you turn it on, your needle position will normally be bang on in the middle. So on mine, it says 5.5. I've got the Janome 5060, and when it's on 3.5, when the needle position's on 3.5, that means it's in the middle. And you want your needle position to be in the middle, because then your presser foot will help you, because what you want to do is you want to line up the edge of your label with the with the middle of your foot, and then if it is straddling the middle, then the zigzag will always be even sides of your label. Okay, so that's how you need to line it up to make sure it's nice and neat. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second thing you need to do is you need to make sure you've got it on the correct setting. So the correct setting for my satin stitch on my machine is I set it to 6, which is the zigzag for my machine, and then I set it to 3, which is the width of the stitch, and then I set it to 0.5, sometimes 0.4, which is the length of the stitch. And then so we're just going to sew through 2 layers. We're not going to sew through just 1 layer. We're going to sew through these 2 layers, and we're going to sew the label on. So what we want to do is we want to straddle our label so that it's right in the middle and it's going along both sides. And so we're going to make sure it's all lined up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera down so you can see what I'm... And you're going to see for this that I'm going to go nice and slow. So I'm taking my speed down a little, and I'm just going to go nice and slow all the way down till I get to the end of my label. So the first end. So once you get to the end, you want to make sure that the needle is in your fabric, not in your label. So when the needle is in the fabric, then you can twizzle, then you can pivot and go again to the other length. And again, when you get to the end, make sure your needle is in the fabric, not in the label. And this will just ensure that you get a nice corner and a nice sharp corner. Keep going, keep going. And then we're down to the final run. And go right up to the end of your stitching. And then I have got an automatic thread cutter on my machine. And there you have it. I just need to cut a few threads, but that's all done. So I've done it in this yellow thread so that you can see it. But if you wanted to, you could do it in a black if you were doing it on this type of fabric so that it would almost disappear. I think both looks nice. So the next thing you want to do is you want to fold your key fob in, and whatever you're using, you'll want to put that on now. Okay. And then with that on in the middle, you are going to open out your key fob and clip or pin along the top, so the two short ends are now right sides together, and you're going to sew with a centimetre seam allowance along that edge. And I'm not going to pin because, you know, I'm naughty. But I am going to use my 1 centimetre seam allowance, as I said. And I am going to hold the edges together with my fingers. And then once you've done that, you'll want to open this seam so it's flat and just fold it all back in again. Now, as I said, if you were using a nice crisp cotton, this would fold in much nicer. And yeah, much more nicely. Can't think what the correct phrase is there. And then yeah, and then it just kind of folds it all over, and then here you have it. So obviously I want the label to be on the outside, so I'm just going to turn it round. There we have it. And then what we want to do is we want to sew with a top stitch all the way around. So what you're going to do is you're going to put it over your machine like this. Now, if you can't get it over your free arm, then you can just put it onto your machine and sew round, and then you're just going to close up that edge. I'm going to bring you in a bit closer and show you how to do that. So I've brought you in nice and close, so I hope you can see, and I've made my stitch length now a longer top stitch, and I've got it at stitch length 3. And I have put black thread into my machine. And what I'm going to do is, so I've got my key fob here. Let me just turn it around so you can see that the key fob is on this end. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spin it round, and as I sew, I'm going to move the key fob out of the way as I go. So I'm going to line it all up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move my needle position over to the right hand side, and this means then I can just keep it nice and close to the edge. I think that looks neater, and then I'm just ready to sew. So I'm going to sew till I get to the key fob, and then I'm just going to pull the key fob along. And then just make sure as you go that you've still got everything folded nicely and everything is tucked in nicely, and that the edges are lined up nicely. these are nice, quick and easy projects, but if you take a bit of time, you do get a much neater finish, and you just keep going till you get back to where you started. I have, and then I'm just going to get rid of, I've got a very long thread there. And then if you want to, which I like to do, I then do the other side. Now obviously you don't need to do the other side because that side is already sewn together, but it does look nice and neat and uniform. And might I say it, a little more professional. And again, you want to trim away any threads. Managed to get one right on top of the label. So there we have it. And now what you want to do is you'll want to look to where your seam is, so where you sewed your seam in the middle, and pop your key fob on that part there, and then we're just going to sew across here to keep everything nicely in place. So here we have a lovely sparkly key fob. Now this works well if you want to put it on your wrist, so then you can clip on here. It's great for dog walking, it's great for popping your purse, your keys, your phone, anything you like on, and great for a quick and simple gift. And as I said, you can make them in any fabrics you like, any designs you like, and any hardware you like. Happy Tuesday!